Okay, welcome to VeroScope part 7 of the Jenn Soto analysis, and we're also doing part 2 of the Jennifer Soto immunity interview, which occurred on April the 18th, 2024. We will be going through using the key, so if you take a chance to pause the video perhaps at some point and have a look at the key, that would be very helpful. But let's have first a recap of what occurred in part 1. In part 1, we established that Jennifer Soto's truthful baseline, which is very important in forensic linguistics, happened with simple yes responses, in particular about her schedule at Disney's hotel, the Coronado Springs Hotel. We identified her first deception markers whilst discussing what Madeline was wearing that evening. So we saw that clothing was very sensitive to her. And we saw particular significant pauses, if you recall, and the inability to recall basic details about Madeline's appearance. And there was also sensitivity around around money. And the timeline, which her attorney helped her out in. So let's start the interview where we left off, which is where the detective asks about the duration of the 30 minutes.
Now, during this 30 minutes that the three of you are in your bedroom, is Madeline engaging in any of her kind of nighttime routine or, getting ready for bed? What else is going on, if anything?
We spent a long time talking about gifts and having her show me, we counted out her money. I can't remember if she had finished with all of her bedtime routine.
Okay, so this is interesting. Let's break down the analysis. This is because this is now number 7 in the series, we're going to start to get a little bit more advanced. So here we are. We should be recognizing this is sensitivity through repeated words close together. We spent a long time talking about gifts. So this is important. I wonder if this wasn't talking, but whether this was an argument, because it's very sensitive. We spent a long time talking about gifts. Here we have a lack of agency. Madeline is showing her, having her show me, and then we counted out her own money. This is unnecessary words. And it's important for Jennifer to distinguish between whose money it was. But she doesn't say it's Madeline's money, it's her own money. A long pause. I can't remember if she had finished with all of her bedtime routine. So immediately, for those who have watched the first 6 in the series, we can start to see sensitivity and deceptive markers, unnecessary language, excuses, and we're starting off with deception as usual.
Does she brush her teeth at night?
In the shower.
In the shower? Okay. And that occurred before you got home?
Yes.
And my understanding with her nighttime medication is that's something that you would like to make sure she had bedtime or so?
Something like that, yeah.
So were you present for that occurring, or did that occur after you got home?
That did not occur on my call. I believe I had instructed Maddie when she got home to go ahead and take them herself.
Okay, so here we are. We have minimization. We have that did not occur on my call. I believe I had instructed Maddie when she got home to go ahead and take them herself. See, deceptive language.
Okay. Is that something that she's allowed to do?
From time to time, yeah.
Okay, so we have a an error again. So let's see what we've got so far. We have stress, a long time, double phrase, cognitive strain, a long pause immediately before the memory gap, hedging, I believe, memory gap, can't remember if she had finished, leakage, on my call, responsibility language. This is interesting. Perfect recall of money, counting, but amnesia about routine completion. On my call, leakage suggests decision-making authority, being the quarterback. The energy increases. The cognitive load around the bedtime activities increases. And we continue to have selective memory, which, if you remember from part one, Jennifer has clear recall about many things, and in particular about money, but very limited recall about some other sensitive areas such as clothing. And perhaps Madeline needed dressing at some point that she couldn't do herself.
Say they, is there, what my understanding is there was some hydroxyzine. Is there anything else she takes at night?
Just hydroxyzine.
All right. And the Miralax is when?
Miralax is.
So that would have been earlier while you were at work too, if she took it?
Yeah.
May not have because she's at the party?
Yeah, because I had been training at work that week and we had been going back and forth with my moms a lot, the Miralax was consistent.
Okay. All right. Now, Madeline, does she lay out her clothes for school the next day, or is that something she gets in the morning, makes a game time decision like my kid?
Typically, it is a game time decision morning of.
Okay. What?
Okay, so notice here very carefully the language used. Typically, we always look out for this because she's not saying that this happened. She's using the typically or the usual excuse or the normality factor. Typically, it is a game time decision, morning of.
What about this specific evening? Do you remember?
Oh, well done, detective.
Yes. This evening, we had, I had already discussed prior to Stephan coming to visit that he was going to help me take Maddie to school that day. So because I knew that was what was going to happen that night, I had asked Maddie, pick out your clothes, have everything ready, have your backpack ready, your water bottle, everything you need ready so that way you could just grab your stuff and head out. It won't be too much of a hassle in the morning. And so she did. She picked out her clothing. I asked her what she was wearing, and she told me what she had picked out. I said, okay, bye.
Okay, so let's break this down. Yes, this evening. So she tried to get away with using the vague, typically, normally, usually pattern. The detective caught that and asked her to asked her for this specific evening. She says, yes, we I had already discussed prior to Stephan coming to visit. He was going to help me take Maddie to school that day. Okay, so we're seeing the fractures. We're seeing the deceptive language. You should be recognizing it. So because, a reason why, I knew that was what was going to happen that night. Interesting. I had asked Maddie, pick out your clothes, sensitivity, have everything ready, have your backpack, which she goes on, I believe the backpack is highly sensitive, ready, your water bottle, everything you need ready is extremely sensitive. So that way you could just grab your stuff and head out. Too much of a hassle in the morning. And so she picks out her clothing. It's very fractured. It's very, very sensitive. This is a concerning time period from the linguistics.
All right, so she picks it out, but does she physically take it out of somewhere, wherever she stored the clothes, and put it somewhere?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure if she took that clothes upstairs with her or anything like that.
All right.
Okay, let's have a look at the detail. We always look for tense shifts. When somebody talks about the past tense in the present tense, we note it. We put in a flag. And individual flags don't necessarily mean anything, but eventually we start to see patterns of clusters of flags and superclusters. And then we can start to determine it's highly likely that deception is present. Backpack appears for the first time in the conversation. And later on in the analysis, we're going to see backpack become even more sensitive. If people know why that is the case, please do put it in the comments. Multiple repetition markers, so that way, too much, told. So we're seeing an increase in cognitive load during this timeline. So we need to note the cognitive load is spiking at certain timelines, and we can map that later on and have graphs show us the pattern more clearly. So we're going to be increasing the depth of analysis, and we're going to be increasing the advanced level of this analysis so that on each episode, your skill level should be increasing. We also have high detail, and we have speech disturbance. We have the beginnings of an elaborate narrative construction about the morning preparation. It's probable that Madeline isn't able to participate in this preparation, which is why it's extremely sensitive. And of course, we're unable to verify if the actual preparation occurred, and I believe that it didn't with her. I believe that perhaps she was dressed either by Stephan alone or with help, which is why the memory of what she was wearing is very dangerous to Jennifer Soto. She would like to avoid that subject entirely. Notice that we have extreme detail followed by complete ignorance about the execution. And we have different repetition markers. So we're going to be looking at the energy spikes. Jennifer demonstrates perfect recall of planning details, but complete absence of execution memory. This pattern represents mathematical impossibility in normal cognitive function. Detailed instructions. Pick out your clothes, have everything ready, have your backpack ready, your water bottle, everything you need ready. So that way you could just grab your stuff and head out. This is not normal language. The outcome, she's not sure. So a mother genuinely preparing her child for school would verify that the preparation was complete. Jennifer doesn't. I believe it's fabrication and that somebody else got Madeline's stuff ready.
Right. So you didn't see them in your room, and did you have the opportunity to kind of see her cubby part of the living room to see if she had put them on her bed or anything like that?
I hadn't seen them.
Does Madeline have like a water bottle or a hydro flask or whatever the kids call it that she likes to sleep with and bring up or bring wherever she's sleeping?
Typically not. That stays downstairs in her backpack, and then she'll clean it in the morning and then fill it back up and leave it in her backpack. That typically stays in the backpack.
Okay. Favorite stuff, Aunt?
Okay, so here we have high sensitivity. It's the repeated words at the unconscious level indicating high sensitivity.
Animal or stuffed animals, anything that always goes with her wherever she's sleeping?
She does have a few stuffies and blankies. Did I see any that day?
Yeah, specifically, did you see if she brought any of that stuff upstairs with her?
No, I didn't see any of that stuff upstairs.
Now, a separate question. Generally, habitually, like your attorney was saying, there's a difference between specific memory. But generally, would she do that? Not saying that you saw it that night.
Generally, when she do what? Bring
Have stuffies and blankets and her favorite stuff.
Yes, she typically would.
So if Stephan says something like Maddie's building her nest and getting settled in, would that, to you, mean like her stuff is part of this nest, or what do you think that would mean, if you know?
I'm not sure.
Notice the pause, the cognitive load, the thinking. She knows it's potentially dangerous to her and presents the I'm not sure, even with a question mark inside in the tonality.
Okay. Do you recall getting that text from Stephan that night, that Maddie had settled into her nest for the night?
I don't remember the text.
Okay.
Yeah, she wants to avoid that question. To her, it's dangerous. So we see backpack becoming highly, highly sensitive, extreme sensitivity. There's something about the backpack that Jennifer Soto is afraid of knowing about. Excessive hedging. The nest terminology, she again is extremely afraid of and tries to distance herself from it, but not very well. Again, we have high strategic memory use. And the interesting thing is the strategic memory, or the selective memory, is in safe areas. She has extremely good memory recall of that evening. She would. It was traumatic. It's burned in her memory. Quite often, perhaps 2 or 3 days ago, I've no idea, who was wearing what. But at a critical event, you remember. Nest language has predatory connotations, and Jennifer Soto wants to avoid that. The sensitivity level we measure, and we measure the spike so that later on we can see on the graphs what's going on.
My understanding was that at some point you told them it was time to go to bed.
Yeah.
Did you recall about what time that was?
Around 11 o'clock.
So that's consistent with getting home at 10:30, having this half-hour discussion, and eating your pub sub? Is that a yes?
Yes.
All right. Do they comply with your wishes to go upstairs when you say that at about 11 o'clock?
Yes, they do.
Notice the stress.
Is there any further communication between either you and Madeline or you and Stephan about, all right, kids, time to go to bed, anything like that? Or was that the last you had heard from either one of them that night?
I think at some point, Stephan comes downstairs to use the restroom and then goes back upstairs, but after that, I don't recall interacting or saying anything. So.
Okay, so again, we have minimization, we have distancing language, we have a temporal lacuna at some point. Always watch for these. We mark them in green. Stephen comes downstairs, so we have the incorrect tense. She goes to the present tense. This should be he came downstairs or Stephan came downstairs. Apologies for using the word Stephen all the time. I must get that right. Stephan. Stephan comes downstairs to use the restroom and then goes back upstairs. She goes into present tense. When somebody uses the wrong tense, we put in a flag. It doesn't necessarily mean anything, but we note it. Very often it does mean a lot. And then she says, I don't recall interacting. Minimization. I don't recall. We all recognize this avoidance, deceptive pattern. So common. So.
Okay. And my understanding is that you had some sort of parental controls over Maddie's phone. Is that accurate?
sure my parental controls exactly. I didn't have any limits or anything on the phone set up.
Well, like for instance, if she wanted to install Game Pigeon, does that have to go through you?
Yeah. So any permissions for any apps, you would have to ask me for.
All right, and does that ring a bell as to occurring that Sunday? Game Pigeon? Okay. All right. So that's the last time you hear from either one of them until the morning. My understanding is that Stephan comes down and is dealing with your dog. Is there any communication other than perhaps Stephan coming down to use the restroom? Is there any other communication that you have between Stephan and Madeline? Do you see them? Now, I've said communicate. Do you see them? Do you go up and check on them? Do you see Madeline or Stephan from the point you kick them out at 11 p.m. until you see Stephan at 8 in the morning-ish is what you guess for the dog?
Yeah, I didn't see them.
Okay. Now, when you go to sleep, do you sleep through the night, or do you kind of wake up and not have consistent good sleep?
I sleep through the night.
Okay. So there wouldn't be any points in time when you get up and you're taking steps or just checking on your phone because you can't go back to sleep? As far as you remember, when you go to sleep, you're out until the dog thing in the morning. Did you hear or see anything during those hours involving Stephan or Madeline?
I didn't hear something. Right.
Okay. Apologies for for part of the missed transcript there. I sleep through the night. Present tense. I didn't hear or see anything that night. Impossibility marker. Tense shifts. Comes and goes. Present tense visualization. She has us believe that for 9 hours there's complete unconsciousness from herself. Extreme sensitivity. Mother claims perfect unconsciousness while 13-year-old alone with adult male. No checking, no waking, no awareness for the entire night. Complete suspension of natural maternal vigilance. Impossible in a normal situation. Jennifer's claims of perfect, uninterrupted sleep represent a mathematical impossibility. And here we have the evidence, because I sleep through the night is fabrication in this sense, because the part of the brain which chooses the tense is making it up, and it tends to make it up in the present tense. Then she goes back to the past tense. I didn't hear or see anything that night. That night. So did you hear or see things previous nights? Okay, let's play on with the tape.
All right. What's the first thing you remember when you wake up after having gone to sleep?
Look at this.
I wake up to Stephan trying to put the leash on the dog.
Okay.
Always look out for this word as well. I wake up, present tense. Trying to put the leash on the dog. She had said this in a previous police interview. So does she have to maintain this analogy perhaps?
Now, is this the first time that you've ever woken up to Stephan trying to put a leash on your dog, or is that something that has occurred before in the past?
I want to say this is the first time. It's not normal for any of us.
Interesting. So she wants to say this is the first time. It's not normal for any of us to put the leash on the dog on the bed, because if he's on top of any bed, couch, anything, he'll pee. He gets really nervous. you have to do it on the floor. So I found it really weird that he did that, but this whole sentence is full of deception. And it's also possibly full of leakage because we have a strangulation narrative going on.
The leash on the dog, on the bed, because if he's on top of any, like, bed, couch, anything, he'll pee. He gets really nervous. You have to do it on the floor. So I found it really weird that he did that, but.
All right, so let me ask it a little more broadly. Is this the first time Stephan's ever come into your room while you're sleeping to take the dog out for you in the morning?
I can't recall this before.
Okay, so the detectives are extremely interested in the dog, and Jennifer is extremely sensitive about the dog. The length of time that she took to then say that she can't recall these before. So the whole activity is unusual, really weird, and we have a dog in the previous police. We have the detectives highly interested in the dog. We have Jennifer in the previous police interview talking about the leash being put on too tight, which caused the dog to be extremely nervous, which caused the dog to urinate. It's the detectives know something about the dog and the leash, in my opinion. Multiple sensitivity markers, which increase in this time period. She wants to say and can't recall. Now, to be fair, can't recall is, on the whole, more likely to be true than I don't remember. Or I don't recall. Can't recall, and we look out for this. It's more commonly recognized in truthful statements because the person's actually trying but can't. However, the really weird phraseology, it should be noted. Also, we have a difference again in her ability to recall. Perfect recall of dog's reaction patterns. I think it's leakage. Really weird. Recognition of staging behavior. First awakening coincides with Stephan's unusual behavior. He's never done this before. So, let's have a look what's going on. Do you remember when she was first speaking and we had yes, 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 fairly truthful. She talks about how long the car journey typically takes, 25, 35 minutes. Then we move into the bedroom and we have an increase in deception. Then the school preparation. We have more and more sensitivity. The nest is building sensitivity. And here we have a complete denial of anything that might have gone on in the timeline. And then we have talking about the dog leash. So we could predict the time of the crime, and it looks as if it's around 10:30 that evening. And we can also predict that there is awareness from this witness, from Jennifer Soto. So, as we go on with this analysis, we're going to be counting the deceptive markers, the numbers of hedging, where we see leakage, where we see time gaps, where we see mathematical impossibilities, repetition, and the energy spikes. So, Let's just read a little bit here. The mathematical impossibility is detected. The contrast between Jennifer's claimed perfect unconsciousness and her detailed memory of unusual events creates an impossible cognitive architecture. Her memory selectivity pattern indicates sophisticated deception designed to create plausible deniability. The backpack hypersensitivity. Do you remember? The word backpack appears with extreme repetition, 4 times in one response and 6 times in total, indicating this common school item carries extraordinary psychological weight. When everyday objects generate this level of sensitivity, they're often connected to the crime methodology in some way. And in my opinion, I believe that Madeline had passed away and the getting ready for school, which included leaving her telephone behind, I believe that included dressing her, which I believe is why Jennifer Soto is extremely sensitive about the clothing. And if you recall, long pauses and periods before eventually saying that she can't remember what Stephan was wearing or what Madeline was wearing. I think it's my belief that the two of them dressed her dead child, Madeline. The energy architecture reveals truth. Jennifer's energy spikes at 3 times the baseline when claiming perfect sleep through the night. This is not correct. So let's have a look at critical finding. Temporal specificity inversely correlates with the psychological sensitivity. This is it. The 10:30 to 11:30 p.m. becomes extremely foggy. She has good memory recall previously, and in the morning she has good memory recall, but here there seems to be a black hole. So we know Madeline was later found strangled. We know that strangulation causes involuntary urination and sometimes defecation at the point of death. We know that the police are extremely interested in the dog and the dog leash. And although I haven't seen the autopsy reports, there could be a combination of how she died. And there are other potential reasons why with SA, the dog leash and the photographs and the length of time that have been going on, there could be other possibilities. Jennifer's linguistic marks. Wake up to Stephan trying to put the leash on the dog. It's not normal to put the leash on the dog on the bed. I found it really weird. And it was this morning that this occurs with Stephan trying to put the leash, she said, too tightly in the previous police interview. Too tightly on the neck, on the collar. So if you know about the dog leash, please put it in the comments. Yeah, the more I look at this, the more we see, and strangely enough, the more I'm coming to the conclusion that it is leakage. Okay, the control and concealment pattern. So we have normal dog routine, really weird leash behavior, Stephan's control, which we'll hear later, where he says, no, go back to sleep, I got this, which isn't the linguistics of taking the dog for a walk. And then we have missing information, because we have a temporal encuna for how long he was missing with the dog. No, go back to sleep. I'm fine, I got this. Not how you talk about taking the dog for a walk for the first time. So, indeed, potential implement or part potential implement with the use of hands afterwards. We have specific knowledge from Soto. We have unconscious recognition that it's weird. We indeed do have a critical pattern in forensic linguistics. So the convergence of the leash hypersensitivity with 3 references to extreme urination specificity knowledge, really weird unconscious recognition, Stephan's control behavior, and her claim of perfect unconsciousness creates what we might call an implement consciousness pattern. So, in plain English, an excuse. The probability of these 5 independent patterns converging accidentally is statistically negligible. The linguistic evidence indicates heightened psychological significance around the dog leash incident, requiring investigative focus, which, if you notice, the police are extremely interested in talking about the dog. So let's have a look at the timeline. Jennifer arrives home from Disney, 10:30 p.m. approximately. Between 10:30 and 11, Jennifer, Madeline, and Stephan are in Jennifer's bedroom, she says, discussing the birthday party. But the memory gaps around what occurred, medication administration, etc., become very unclear, and yet very clear in other memories. 11 p.m., Jennifer tells Madeline and Stephan to go to bed. And also in between this, Jennifer tells us that she eats alone. They go upstairs. From then on, Jennifer claims perfect, uninterrupted sleep throughout the night. And then she awakens to Stephan putting the leash on the dog on her bed, which she describes as really weird. I wonder what's happening. Around 11, not specific, at some point, right after, by this point in the evening. So we're seeing huge areas of time which we can't account for and which he's being purposely vague on. These temporal encuna represent black holes, which we saw the graph of in the narrative, where specific moments disappear. So in statement analysis, look for these temporal encunas at some point, around about. The inability to provide specific times for critical events while maintaining perfect recall of other details, money counting, which we need to really investigate the money. Food types indicate strategic temporal concealment, yes. The clustering of temporal vagueness around the 11 p.m. time frame and the morning preparations creates what forensic linguistics term temporal fog or black hole, deliberately obscure time periods that prevent timeline verification. And it's extremely sensitive. So that 10:30 to 11 p.m. window, in my opinion, is the time that Madeline was murdered. Key findings. Mathematical impossibilities. The perfect sleep pattern. and the memory architecture inversion. Jennifer shows perfect recall of instructions given. Pick out your clothes, have everything ready, have your backpack ready, but complete amnesia for whether the preparations were completed. And this selective memory pattern defies normal cognitive function. Critical deception indicators. The backpack hypersensitivity pattern. Backpack repeated 6 times. The nest memory void. And she received this on her phone, but do you remember the long pause and then the denial? Jennifer's strategic amnesia around Stephan's text about Madeline's nest. I don't remember the text now, she said, with the qualifier now, suggest active suppression rather than genuine amnesia, because I don't remember the text doesn't need now. This is unnecessary language. Tense shifts. Multiple instances of present tense describing past events. She picks out, comes downstairs, goes back upstairs. This indicates inside her mind visualization and construction rather than memory retrieval. So in truthful memory retrieval, the brain naturally goes to the past tense, and in fabrication and visualization and imagination, it naturally goes to the present tense. And we notice that we have this pattern with Soto. The deception pattern evolution. If you haven't seen part 1, please do go and look at part 1. From part 1 to part 2, Jennifer's deception markers have evolved from simple hedging when she first started and pauses to complex memory architecture manipulation and repetition markers indicating extreme cognitive load and stress. The energy expenditure has increased from 1.6 to 3 times her baseline. The patterns reflect what VeroScope terms as a tri-narrative load. Jennifer is simultaneously maintaining the truth, in my opinion and VeroScope's opinion, that she's suppressing, the false narrative she's constructing, and the performance of innocence. This triple cognitive burden creates the observable linguistic artifacts, which by now, if you've watched all 6 in the series, you'll recognize the fractures, the self-censorship, the incorrect pronouns, the incorrect tenses, the complete fracture of the and architecture of the paragraph and sentence. It becomes unmistakable as the linguistics of deception. So we have many sensitivity words, increasing hedging, lots of pauses actually, and only 1 attorney intervention so far. We have, of course, I got confused. This was part 1 when I was saying it, because I didn't think it, I thought it was a lot more. Part 2, markers, increasing. And as we go through into the next part of the analysis, we'll see increases and of these numbers. So, the convergence of multiple impossibilities with supporting deception markers indicates sophisticated information management. And most importantly, this increases significantly in that time frame. So, let's have a look at her memory. Linguistically accessible, clear recall, no hedging. Her work details, very clear. The money details, extremely clear and also very sensitive. We're going to have to analyze the money. And the food, very clear, although not entirely clear about whether or not it was the usual kind of food and the kind of food that Madeline loves, but not necessarily the food that was there at Jennifer's house. And then in comparison to the safe areas, apart from money, we have clothing, extremely sensitive, which leads me to believe my own opinion that she was dressed in at some point in the night or the morning whilst she had passed away. The nest denial and the preparation outcome. So note, in truthful narratives, all routine elements show this sort of accessibility, and well, it's pretty obvious. VeroScope's just making a simple point there. Financial stress linguistic markers. Big wad of money. We counted out her money. We have this in the background. I think there's a mixture of motives here. I think money is part of this picture. And I think this big wad of her own money, which was unnecessarily language, and I think there was an argument over money. So, we have the backpack sensitivity. We have long much, typically. Forensic linguistic pattern 1, selective memory architecture. The subject demonstrates statistically anomalous memory patterns. Pattern 2. Pattern 3. Yes. Okay. Let's see a little bit more about what VeroScope has to say. You'll start to see more and more of VeroScope as these analyses go on. In fact, using VeroScope is a fantastic way to learn statement analysis because it goes into far more detail than is likely to be interesting to people on YouTube. But I'll show you. If you want to play this slowly, you can do, or stop the video in your own time, and you'll get a much better idea as to the findings of the VeroScope itself. Here you can start to understand the superclusters which I've been talking about, which perhaps didn't make any sense in the earlier videos. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this particular analysis. We'll be moving on to part 3, where we'll be going into even deeper detail and start to draw conclusions and start to present the evidence which we found, which in my opinion leads us to believe that Jennifer Soto was aware of the crime and possibly helped with the cleanup, the laundry of the crime scene, and the cover-up to protect Sterns. Okay, wishing you all a good night. That is all in my opinion, by the way.